Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode in Factorio Workshop. As always, I am joined by Zuri.
Greetings.
And we're gonna go over a submitted design here by one of the viewers of last episode. They submitted a blueprint for us to go over, which is a steel smelter, as you can probably see. Really quick, just so I can give credit. This was submitted by Durentis, I believe. Apologies if I mispronounce it. So yeah, again, really quick, if you have designs to be submitted for us to look at and critique and give suggestions to, etc., please give us a blueprint string or picture that we can remake it from, and we would love to go over that. That's what the series is about. But I'm going to let Zuri take it from here and go over this build and I guess fill in anything he might forget.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with the input-output ratios. For steel, you need 5 times as many input belts as output belts. So we're looking at this. We kind of have a Jinky hooked up to a red belt, but that's okay. Originally, it's inputted with 2 blue belts. But you come out here to the output, and it's got 4 blue belts. That's backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So you need about 5 input belts per output belt of the same tier. And if you do the math for this whole build, steady state output is about 1 yellow belt.
Yeah, which is ridiculous to think about. I mean, I never would have thought that looking at this. You know, it's huge for one, and there's all these smelters. There's 120 smelters, and tons of blue belt and stuff. And Zuri did the math. This entire design working full pace will only output 1 yellow belt of steel.
Yeah, steel gobbles up a lot of space and resources, so don't underestimate it.
Yeah. So, then for the input, outputting only 1 yellow belt, it needs, what, you said like 2 red belts worth of iron, and that's all it can really process?
Yeah, the build as it is now will eat about 2 fully compressed red belts and output 1 fully compressed yellow belt. A little more than a fully compressed yellow belt, but it's close enough.
Right.
And the reason why it worked in the build and the screenshots is because he's feeding it with fully compressed blue belts of iron, and everything's backing up. But you look at these inserters, these poor inserters, they can't grab anything.
They're having a little spasm here.
Yeah. Well, until the belt's full enough that they can grab the second one or third one as it reaches for the first.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not feeding it nearly enough for it to do that.
Right. So
also, yeah, as it backs up and then the output belts fill up, you start building up the buffer. And if you're going to use a buffer, you have to very specifically design it for like a certain purpose. As a general rule, you want to avoid using buffers because you get this effect where you can only use the output about 8.5% of the time. That way you don't completely drain the buffer. You use it like, if you use this build 10% of the throughput of these belts, and it'll drain the buffer, and then as soon as the buffer empties, you're limited to 1 yellow belt of output total for your entire factory. That's never a good thing.
Right. So, you really dislike buffers, and people may wonder why, and this is why. So, just really quick, when we were talking before the video, you gave me an example that if you were like using this or whatever to make the like low density structures, which take 10 steel or whatever, it may seem all fine and dandy while your buffer's built up, so you have a full buffer. You may be throwing these, producing these things, really quick. But like Zuri said, once your buffer runs out, everything is gonna pretty much die. Because you're gonna be down to 1 yellow belt of steel, and then your production is just gonna drop dramatically.
Yeah, that's about 10,000 steel you need for a rocket if you don't use productivity modules. That's a lot.
Yeah. So, let's see here. You also wanted to talk about the this loop system we have going on here.
Yeah, I tend to optimize for computational complexity for builds like this, actually. And something you've got to remember with these loops is if it's moving, it's calculating.
Yep.
So that may cause problems, actually. If you use a lot of belt loops like this and everything's always moving around, yeah, it looks really pretty. I'll give you that. And if that's what you're going for, realize that you may be trading some updates per second for it on really big factories.
Right.
It's the price you got to pay for your loops.
Yeah. So, and then, I mean, you'd mentioned to me that these loops aren't actually necessary for the build to work, right?
Correct. These, like, you can use yellow belts for this entire build. There's 10 furnaces, and I think 12 can feed per side per tier. So unless this was 3 times as long on the sides, this can't eat blue belt. The way it's built right now, you can use yellow belt and it'll work just fine. And may even work better since the inserters won't stall.
Yeah, exactly. So, if people want to use this build, or for whoever, for the person who came up with it as well, either upgrade the inserters to, blue fast inserters, unless you plan to have this backed up all the time, and then these could work, or like Zuri said, from this point, from once it comes in here, everything can be yellow belt. You'll still, if you want this running full capacity, you will need these 2 red belts coming in, but after this point, everything in here can be yellow belt, and this will work perfectly fine. And then spit out 1 yellow belt of steel.
Yeah, and you don't need nearly as much room in the center here for these belts, because like I said, you can just have 1 yellow belt down the middle and just shoved onto the side, and it'll work just fine.
Yep. So, that's that's the thing. If you're trying to save space, this thing's huge. This is huge for only outputting 1 yellow belt. If space is not an issue for you, go for it. Both me and Zuri agreed. This is a really nice looking design. We like this design. Space-wise, though, there's a lot of wasted space.
Yeah, 2 tiles on the outside for both ends. A lot of wasted space for the buffer. Again, you've got to be very careful with your buffer. It's deceptive. It makes you think you have a higher production than you do.
Mm-hmm.
It's what I call one of the noob traps. Like, it feels really good to build up a buffer, right? But
yeah,
it doesn't really help in the long run at all.
Yeah, not really. So, I think, let's see here. Buffers, input, output. Yeah, so as Zuri said, pretty much, you can really only use this, like, 8.5% of the time, before things will start kind of running out here. And I mean, again, this is... I just want to clarify, because I know there's people who may get upset, especially when we go over builds like this that you submitted. We're not saying that you're like horrible at Factorio or anything. We're literally just going over the builds, what's good and what's bad. This build is really cool. I like this build. I mean, this is something I would use, because I'm not I don't care like a ton about, space and stuff. But in terms of pure efficiency and, the input and output, then we've kind of gone over that, and some of it is maybe not optimal.
Yeah, I'd triple the lengths of the wings. I'd bring in more inputs. And I might decide to keep the buffer, actually. I'd make a smart buffer system using my smart train loading. so all the boxes fill up exactly evenly and dump out at the same speed as well.
Yeah, that would definitely probably help. And I mean, that'd be pretty easy to do with this, with these buffers. You just need like one combinator and then just wire these guys up.
Yeah, one combinator for the entire build, actually.
Oh, really? Right, yeah. Because then you can just wire all of them all together.
Yep.
So there you go. Is there anything else you want to go over with this? Any suggestions or anything? I mean, you kind of did that, but...
Just keep in mind, input output counts and ratios. People tend to forget that, if you want one fully compressed blue belt or red circuits, that's like, I don't know, 800 machines or something like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You need to take into account the crafting speed and stuff. And actually, one last thing really quick, to just go over the math for people who are wondering how we arrived at this, like the input and output. Zuri, you did what? You took the crafting speed of steel, multiplied it, or divided it by the furnaces, and then multiplied it by the crafting speed?
That's backwards. I took the number of furnaces and divided by the crafting speed, or the crafting time, to give me the overall speed.
Mm-hmm.
And you multiplied by the crafting speed, which is 2 for electric furnaces and steel furnaces.
Right. Okay, so yeah, that I got that backwards. So just Zuri said it right. Just to say it again for anyone who's confused, confused by my mess up. We take the number of steel furnaces, 120. We divide it by the crafting speed of steel, which is 17.5, and then we multiply that by the crafting speed of the actual machine. In this case, it's 2, and that is our output, which was
13.714 items per second, or you can do minute by multiplying by 60.
Right, and that's again a yellow belt. What is the throughput of a yellow belt? Do you know off the top of your hand?
40 divided by 3.
That's the throughput of yellow?
Yeah, they actually recently changed it to exactly 40 divided by 3.
Which is 13.3. So there we go. It pretty much is a yellow belt worth of output. So there you go. There's the design, guys. I'll leave the blueprint, the link to the blueprint websites where you can find the string, where the original poster has put it, in case you want to use this design. Again, so there you go. Suggestions, critiques and stuff. Very nice looking design. As Zuri said, if you want to expand this, make the wings 3 times longer. If you want to leave it like this, though, I mean, these blue belts, just as the last thing, blue belts are really expensive, right? I mean, blue belts are pretty damn expensive. If you want to save resources, I would suggest making this all yellow belt. It doesn't need to be a blue belt, and this is, let's see, this is 810 blue belts, not counting the splitters and undergrounds. That is a lot of resources that don't, have to be here. So there we go. That is our steel smelter design. If that was submitted to us last episode. If you have any designs you want us to look at, let us know. Leave a blueprint string or a picture for us to remake it from. And next time we will go over another submitted design. And yeah, until then, we will catch you next time.
Goodbye.